We're talking Bottom, because that's the title of a book subtitled A Guide to the Cult Sitcom. And two of the people involved in that book, Angela Pearson and Paul Tanter, are here with us now. Welcome both of you to BBC Radio London.
Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Now, I've already explained to you that I feel slightly kind of out of it here, because I've never watched Bottom. I'm aware of it. It's probably been on in the same room as me occasionally. I might have seen clips of it every now and then, but I'm too old, I think. It was probably a generational thing, and it wasn't quite my generation.
Okay, well, did you watch the young ones then?
I saw the young ones much more. I was never a huge fan of the young ones.
Right, so Rick and Aid's work kind of passed you by.
Well, I thought it was a bit silly.
That's exactly what it is. But
I'm more as independent traders, or I'm more...
Oh, yeah, well, I personally love Only Fools and Horses as well. I grew up watching so many different comedies on the BBC and otherwise. But Red Dwarf, Bottom, they were the two shows when I was growing up that I absolutely loved.
Yeah, for our generation, I think that was those were our comedies. We said that our elder siblings' generation was the generation that grew up with the young ones. I loved that. And that humour very much led into what Bottom was.
What was the relation between Young Ones and Bottom?
So the Young Ones was Rick Mayall and Adrian Edmondson were both in the Young Ones. Rick Mayall co-wrote it with Lisa Mayer and Ben Elton. And then they did a few other sitcoms. They did one in the late 80s called Filthy Rich and Cat Flap, which was sort of charting their entry into the world of light entertainment. And Rick described the Young Ones as their 20s, or their teens, Filthy Rich and Cat Flap as their 20s, and then Bottom was sort of your 30s when you're living life and everything's a bit rubbish. And as the title of the show says, they're kind of at the bottom of society's heap, living in this sort of dank universe in Hammersmith.
And the really special thing about Bottom is that it's the show that Rick and Aid wrote together and they starred in it. So it was absolutely their baby. It was their vehicle for comedy, and they'd been on throughout the 80s honing their double act. Very violent, Dangerous Brothers was how they sort of started out on stage at the Comedy Store and the comic strip, and they translated that into Bottom, but also with so many other influences. Like, it's the perfect sitcom for us because it's influenced by the likes of Steptoe and Son, Hancock's
Really?
Half Hour.
See, I love Steptoe and Son. I love Hancock.
Oh, well, you'd love Bottom, honestly. One of our missions, because we also do a podcast about Bottom called Talking Bottom, and we've written the book, is we want people to remember the show with the affection. Obviously, we feel for it because we grew up with it, but also to realise it isn't, a load of people have said to me as I've grown, but that's just slapstick, isn't it?
See,
it's
I always
so
thought
much
student
more.
humour.
Yeah.
It is. It's toilet humour. I won't deny that. There is slapstick, but it's the best slapstick you could ever possibly want to see. It's cartoon violence in real live action.
Yeah. Rick and Aid took what the previous physical comedians of the 20th century, I think they're very much the successors to Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, Laurel and Hardy.
You're putting them in some...
And I firmly believe this. They have followed on from that work and they have built on it, and they performed in a BBC sitcom studio the kind of physical comedy and cartoon violence that you would literally only see otherwise in cartoons and animations, but they performed it live in a sitcom studio.
Was the show a hit straight away?
It was definitely not a hit with the critics. Within our book, we sort of go over that after the first episode went out, the critics weren't exactly in love with it. In fact, I think they like to sneer at Bottom. I think Aid and Rick had said that. People like to sneer at them and sort of think they were very lowbrow, when actually what they were doing was waiting for Godot in sitcom form. And it's actually what one of our missions is to prove this isn't just a sort of surface level toilet humour show, which I think a lot of people take away from the show and love about the show. But there's so much more when you get into the layers of Bottom and Rick and Aid's writing.
How much was it scripted and how much was there improvisation involved?
It was all scripted. It was all very, very heavily scripted and rewritten. Scripted. Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that we found in the book through the research we did, we visited the BBC archives and read the first drafts and second drafts and third drafts of the scripts, and you could see the process that Rick and Aid's writing went through, the evolution of it. But what was really striking about it is even when you're reading the first draft of the Bottom script, is the sheer quality is evident in their writing. It's even the first draft is so funny and so good. I maintain that even their first draft is actually better than what a lot of other comedies ended up putting out on TV.
Absolutely. They knew comedy. They'd been working at it for years. This double act that they'd been working on, it's sort of like they've said themselves, it was sort of over 25 years th'd been honing it.
What was the relationship between the two of them?
Well, as in their comedy characters, or between
both.
Rick and Ade? There was definitely, I think, a bit of a blurred line. They say, a lot of themselves went into Richie and Eddie. So the characters in Bottom, if you never watched it, Robert, it's Richard, and Eddie Hitler. And there's a lot of Ade and Rick that is poured into those. Obviously, it's an exaggerated version of themselves. But over the years, they'd done that on stage. It was the sort of love-hate relationship that's there, which I think if Rick and Ade, I'm sure, loved each other. I know Ade's talked about that since Rick sadly died. Obviously 11 years ago now. They loved each other, but there's something about a really close friendship and working partnership, isn't there, as well? There was a lot of tension that gets brewed up, and I think that's the great thing about Richie and Eddie's characters.
And the
tension that's always there.
The characters are sort of a classic odd couple. There's a great thing in British sitcom that often you have characters who are kind of trapped together in a situation and they can't quite escape. Steptoe and Son, Porridge, Red Dwarf, that sort of thing. Yep. And you have these characters who often there's tension between them and they don't quite like each other, but also at the same time they're kind of best friends and can't live without each other. And that, I think, was the relationship between Richie and Eddie. Richie's very much a sort of aspirational British sitcom character in the sort of same vein as Basil Fawlty or Derek Trotter or Alan Partridge, that sort of thing, always hoping for something more.
Yeah, he's got an arrogance to him that's very Hancock. Richie, hasn't he? He's got this middle class arrogance to him, and you always love to see him being brought down a peg or two by the people around him, and Eddie never takes him on. That's what's brilliant.
The book, which is quite a big tome, isn't it? Goes through each episode, doesn't it? That's how it's kind of organised.
Yeah.
Yes, we go through each episode. So there was 3 series of Bottom that ran for 6 episodes per series, so 18 episodes. Then the show spawned the live version of the show. So they did 5 sellout tours around the UK over the course of 10 years, and a feature film version of Bottom called Guest House Paradiso. So
was that good?
It was. It's
feature film versions of sitcoms are often not very good.
It did suffer from that, going from the 30-minute to the 90-minute being stretched out. But it's still something that I hold very much in my affections now. When it first came out, actually, even as a fan, I don't think I particularly warmed to it. But watching it back now, since we lost Rick, I'm so glad that it was something that Rick and Ade made. Rick is superlative in it. His performances are always brilliant. He gives his all to it. Ade did the same. He directed it as well. I'm so glad that they took Richie and Eddie to the big screen, and actually fans do love it. And one of the reasons our book is popular, like we've done well, we've had a second print run. There's so much love for the show and for Rick and Ade in particular. There's so much love out there, which we've discovered since starting our podcast. We started because we were fans and we decided it would be great to just chat about our favourite show. And so many people have thanked us for doing it because it's their favourite show. And we're 35 years on next year, Robert, since the show first aired. And there's still
Is it still being aired? Or how do people watch it these days?
Still being aired, still on streaming services. People are still finding it. Young fans, new audiences are still finding it every day, aren't they?
Yeah. It was amazing to us at the Rick Mayall Comedy Festival last year when we did our live podcast there. There are young fans, sort of, 8, 9, 10, sort of age I was when I first discovered Rick, falling in love with that comedy. And I grew up loving Monty Python and all of the shows that had gone before. I think that's what's beautiful about British comedy. It's evergreen. If you've got that sense of humour,
there is a lineage to Python, isn't there? Without doubt.
There's a
lineage to sort of back to Python.
Yeah, absolutely. Like good comedy, I think if it touches something within you that you relate to, certainly as a Brit, I don't think it ever ages.
You see, I'm going to come out with a controversial notion here, I think, because I've always thought that there's a split in British comedy between what I think of as working class comedy and middle class comedy. Now, Python is distinctly middle class comedy. It's people who've come out of Cambridge and Footlights and all that. I thought that The Young Ones was also middle class comedy. It's about students. It's about university life. It's all of that.
Interesting.
Whereas you've got Only Fools and Horses, or you've got Steptoe and Son, which are working class comedies and are much more based in real. The middle class ones go surreal, the working class ones go real, if you like.
Well, I would disagree with you, Robert, I have to say.
That's good.
Because I don't think, I know what you're saying, absolutely, that the character inspiration there for someone like Del Boy is obviously inherently working class. Yeah. And then in Bottom, I have to say, Richie he's definitely like a middle class Tory boy that they're kind of like trying to take down. And I do agree, but I don't think that should mean it's a barrier to the audience that are enjoying it.
I'm just saying that there are sort of two camps chops. If you like.
Okay, yeah. There's definitely the Oxbridge, that sort of cerebral comedy, and that I think is what Rick and Aid. They went to Manchester University.
Yeah.
That they were in the working class set rather than the hoity-toity.
And they saw, I think they saw themselves as more of a working class reaction to the university set, which is why there was the Young Ones episode, the University Challenge episode that had the Oxbridge toffs on, played by Fry and Laurie and Emma Thompson,
which is almost a carry on of the class sketch, the very classic class sketch, which is obviously John Cleese and Ronnie Barker and Ronnie Corbett. It's sort of that there is a divide. You're absolutely right in British society, and comedy should always reflect that. But I don't think there should ever be a barrier to either middle class or working class people liking either of those genres.
Could other people have done Bottom, or is it absolutely about those two?
It's them. It's thoroughly them. I don't think anyone but Rick and Aid could do it.
So if someone took the scripts now and tried to redo them,
I think it's telling that the show's nearly 35 years since Bottom first aired, and it's telling that in the decade since, no one's done anything like it since, and no one's tried to, because I don't think anyone could. It would need to be Rick and Aid. It is a shame that we lost Rick, as you said, 11 years ago, because there was occasionally talk of them returning to the show. They said that at some point that they wanted to do an older version of Bottom with Richie and Eddie in an old people's home, hitting each other with colostomy bags, and that's something I would love to have seen. I think Rick and Aid riding once more as Richie and Eddie is something we all would have loved to have seen.
We would. But yeah, it's absolutely thoroughly Rick and Aid. But I mean, you mentioned if someone performed it, I think I would find it paled in comparison, but who knows? I mean, I hope that there are performers out there that could at least one day try and match Rick and Aid, because I think we're missing it in British sitcom. I think we're missing that.
We're not in a golden era, are we, of sitcoms?
Well, I don't know. You look back in hindsight and realise the 90s was a golden era because they'd been influenced by people they'd been growing up with.
The 90s was a long time ago.
I know, but that's why we still love that. But there are loads of really great British sitcoms still being made. I think the problem now is that you don't only have BBC One, BBC Two, Channel 3, Channel 4.
So we don't all see them.
You have so many conflicting places to find your comedy now, and you could find your own niche, and you can find things that you really like and share it amongst your fellow people. It's not something that 18 million people are tuning in to watch Morecambe and Wise at Christmas anymore, sadly. So the world has changed around it, but it doesn't mean there isn't still good comedy being made.
Do you know what? You've really made me want to watch Bottom.
Good.
Excellent.
We've got a convert already.
We've been talking Bottom, a guide to the cult sitcom by Paul Tanter and by Angela Pearson, and also by Matt Brooks.
Yeah, sorry Matt can't be with us today.
Sorry, Matt. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.